there, this is Rich from Square Design Space. I'm the founder of SquareDesignSpace.com, where you can find custom Squarespace 7.1 templates and custom plugins for Squarespace 7.1. Currently we have some nice animated buttons that just add some nice style to your site, as well as make it a little bit more fun to interact with. So you can check that out at SquareDesignSpace.com. The buttons are only $14.99 and they're very easy to install, so check it out. We're going to dive in and look at fonts now in Squarespace 7.1. So to adjust your fonts, you want to go to Design, and then you want to click on Site Styles, and then Fonts. So currently I'm using a font pack that was provided by Squarespace. So this is Ivy Mode and Athalos for the paragraphs. I think it looks really nice. But let's just talk about font packs for a second. If I click switch, you could see we have access to all of these different font packs, from sans serif, serif, mixed. Serif fonts are the fonts that have the little feet. They're a little bit more formal looking, and sans serif, you can see, don't have those little details. So this is really a convenient way to choose fonts if you don't already have like a certain font style for your brand. This might be a good way to pick one, because these are fonts that have been professionally paired together. If you've never done that before, I can tell you it is a bit of an art, and it can take some time to find fonts that that look really nice together, especially if you don't know like how to look at the different details. So take a look at the font packs. If you find something, just click it and it will automatically just add it to your site. It's really convenient. But let's move on. We'll talk about base size. So base size is basically the way that Squarespace is controlling all of the different font sizes on the website. They're using relative M measurements. So you set a base size, and then you set all of your other sizes relative to that base size. So currently my paragraphs, I'm using 1 rem for my paragraph 2. And that's the way that I like to set it up, because I like to use paragraph 2 as my font size that's like used in the majority of my content. For example, in a blog post, I'm going to have a lot of content. That's all going to be red, and it's got to be a good size for the reader. I don't want it too big. I don't want it too small. So I like to look at my paragraph 2 and then make that 1 rem and set that to a comfortable size, a comfortable reading size. So that's how I arrived at 18 pixels for that, and you can see my paragraph 2 is set to 1 rem. So like I said, all of the other font sizes are going to be based on this base size. So if we look at headings, my heading 1 is 4.6 rem, so obviously quite a bit larger than my base size. But this is kind of how you control all of the sizing for your headings and your paragraphs. So right now I like the way that I have heading 1, heading 2, heading 3, and heading 4 here. So I'm gonna leave that the same. Some different options that you do have: you can change the weight, but just note any changes that you make in here. If you want it to be thinner headings, it's going to apply to your H1, H2, H3, and H4. There isn't anything that you can do specifically to H3, for example, from the Squarespace font control panel. If you wanted to just do something different for H3, you'd have to do that in CSS, which isn't that hard to do, but it's just not an option right from within the Squarespace controls. So line height. I wanted to just point out that your line height, you want to make sure that you look at it at like an H1 where the text is wrapping like this. Sometimes you can make the mistake of like looking at this, for example, and you could say, oh, there's a little bit too much line height right here. You don't want to adjust your line height based on an H2 to a paragraph, because yes, it will make that space smaller, but what you're not seeing is that if you continued this line and it wrapped with an H2, then all of your text is going to be on top of each other. So your line height should be only adjusted based on the H1 or H2 that you're looking at, or the paragraph that you're looking at, and make sure that you wrap the text so that you could see exactly how you want to space your lines. Sorry, I'm going to go back to fonts, headings. So line height, you can see here I have it currently at 1.5. If I increase it, you can see how that looks. So 1.5 I think is pretty good. Some people might like it a little bit tighter. Maybe 1.4. Nah, I'm going to stay with 1.5. Okay. Alright, so that's line height. Text transform is nice. You can quickly make all of your headings all uppercase if you want to see what that looks like, or all lowercase, or capitalize. So this will just capitalize the beginning of each word. Or you can just leave it to however you typed it out. So that's how text transform works. Letter spacing, it looks like there's a negative letter spacing on here, very slight. So if you wanted to adjust your letter spacing, this is the spacing in between horizontally each letter. So that's if I make it really huge. It looks kind of ridiculous. So that's how letter spacing works. I'm going to set that to 0. Alright, so that's pretty much it for your options as far as stylizing your fonts within Squarespace. So I'm going to just save that. Okay, now let's talk about assigning font styles. So you do have some control over font styles. So if you click Assign Styles, you can see that you can change the site title. So if you wanted a different font for that, you could change that. The navigation, you can see currently I have it on custom. It was set to paragraphs before, but if you want it to be the same as your heading font, which is what I did here, you could do that. One thing to note, you don't want to have too many fonts on your website. That's going to slow your page load time down, and if it takes too long to load your page, that's not good for ranking on search results. It's also not a good user experience, so it's good to keep your fonts to 2 at the most 3 fonts on your website. I think that's important to note. So your site navigation, you can see you can control here with all the same controls. If you want to make it bigger, or if you want to make it all caps, however you want it to look, it's all it's all customizable there. Your header button. So if you wanted your header button to look different from your other buttons, you can manipulate that as well. Right now I just have it set to my default sizes here. This is a small button, and it's referring to my button styles. So if you go back, you can see my button styles. So I have my Ivy mode font, 600 weight, and different sizes for small, medium, and large buttons, and it's text transform on lowercase. So it's nice that you can control all of that for your buttons as well. And let's look at other styles that you can assign. So newsletter block, it also gives us options for. So I have a newsletter block right here, and you can see the title is the heading, and it's currently set at heading 3, so maybe I want to go to heading 2. I don't know why that just jumped back up there, but okay, there we go. Alright, so there's heading 2, I like that. Go back. The description is currently set at paragraph 2. I think that's alright. And the field, so the field is just going to be paragraphs. So that's going to be talking about anything that's entered into this bar will be a paragraph. The button is custom currently, so Ivy mode 400. I think that should look just like my other buttons, so I'm going to make it 600. And then I'm going to make it lowercase as well, just like my other buttons. And now that matches. So I don't know why that has to be a separate control for the newsletter button, but it is, and I think that's kind of important to mention because you might think that you've already set up all your fonts, but the newsletter button is a separate button, so it's good to know. And footnote, I believe, is this one right here. So this is set to paragraphs, and it's set on paragraph 3. So I think that's good. So those are all of the different styles that you can assign for your fonts. And I think that pretty much covers it. Now, if for some reason, well, actually, let's just say you wanted to look at a different font for your headings. So you would go to headings and then family, and then you can click browse all fonts. And Squarespace has a ton of fonts available. So they use, I believe, any Adobe font you can find here, as well as Google fonts, and I believe they even have more. So there's a good chance that if there's a certain font you're looking for, it's already here. If there is not, then you can add custom fonts into Squarespace. You will have to have some CSS knowledge to do that, but it's possible. So I'm just going to discard changes there, and I'll show you if you did want to add custom fonts, you would go to custom CSS. So we're under design, custom CSS, and if you scroll down, you'll see manage custom files, and you can add your font files here, and then you would have to reference them in CSS. So that is an option, just wanted to point that out. I believe that's everything you need to know about working with fonts in Squarespace. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to Rich, and my email is support@squaredesignspace.com. Again, that's support@squaredesignspace.com. Thanks for watching.